get a glass of water in case this
Neil, do
tea
you
gets.
guys-
Did I improve my situation?
Say again?
Did I improve my camera setup?
Well, I mean, if are you're gonna have to stand there, or can you get up closer?
Yeah,
No,
because
I
right
got
now what we
barstool.
see is
Okay. If you can sit on a bar, are you sitting on a bar stool right now?
No, I'm going to go grab it. I just didn't know
Okay,
if that
go grab
improved
one.
the
That'll be
situation.
fine. And
Yeah.
Flash, you heard I'm going to bring you on like 10:30, somewhere around there. It just depends. We might run over a little bit with Dave, but we're going to finish the show and do as long as we have. Mike, how much time have you got today? Can you do a couple?
Yeah, I could do. I mean, if you're slammed with guests, if you want me to sit out today, that's fine. I mean,
Oh no, fuck no! I don't want you to
okay.
set out.
Yeah, no,
I'm going to bring you on. Yeah, I'm going to bring you on to do. Okay, good. Well, I'll bring you on right after the opening up, and then I'm going to introduce everybody and all that crap, and then I'll bring you on and we'll talk till the 1:30.
Perfect.
All right, we got 3 minutes, folks. I'm going to just step out for 1 second.
don't.
Oh, you're going to do it, okay, Jules?
No, sorry. Yeah, it's all triggered already. Let me see if I can.
You mean we're rolling?
Yeah, it automatically started rolling at 9 or at like a couple minutes ago.
Okay, so we're live. All right, guys, I'm going live. For everybody watching, roll tape, Julie.
5, 4, 3, 2, 1. You're live with Neve. This is Live with Neve. Iconic musicians, comedians, and entertainers of all types. Interviews, comedy, and God knows what else. Hold on!
Hey, Neil, if you could hear me, you've been on mute the whole time. I just tried calling the studio to tell you your microphone is on mute. Can you hear me? There you go. Yeah, you
Neil.
are.
Hello.
You're on mute.
Oh, how about that? Now that we love this.
We've been texting and we're all sending you messages. You're on mute.
All right. Well, you know what? We always, if you can't laugh at yourself,
right.
you can't laugh at anybody. I don't know
was
who's
probably
calling in on the studio
Brilliant
line.
too, and
but-
I'm sure it was totally brilliant. Everything you said, and I'm so sorry we missed it.
Well, we're going to have to see if I can even remember it again. For everybody who's been sitting here watching this ship of fools that I call home, welcome to the Live with Neve show. We're coming to you from high in the Highlands, and you never know what's going on. We've legalized marijuana in New Jersey, but we'll see what happens. Thankfully, we have the medical thing. So today, I gave everybody a great intro, Mike. Thank you for letting me know. Mike Imparato, who gets an attaboy just for letting the host know what a dipshit he can be at times. At any rate, Mike Imparato, rant man extraordinaire, he'll be joining you in a moment. As soon as I finish this twisted diatribe, we're starting the show again. We have the wonderful and talented Dave Sorber of Southern Steel. Dave Sorber's been a friend of mine since I moved back to New Jersey, and I've followed his band all the time, and we've kept on a friendship over the years through Facebook. Any rate, we also have the lovely and talented Flash Gordon of the Pundits in Florida. The Pundits were a great band that I always enjoyed. We played together at similar gigs. We played at Flash's Club. I recorded music for Flash's album. I was producer on a couple of songs. And one of the songs is actually one of my favorites on the CD, and I've had it on my mind, and it's great. I'm going to have to ask Flash when he's on if I can use it again. It's been a while since I asked him, but we're going to get to you. Julie is behind the scenes, and she's taking care of business for us. Welcome. I will tell you, we don't take ourselves too seriously. So if you're looking for the late show, I just don't have the cast available as Fallon or those guys. But I do have me and Julie and Mike, and hopefully we're going to give you a few chuckles this morning.
Yes.
Hey, Julie. Good morning.
Hi. I'm just going to pop in and out every now and then. How about that?
Okay, that's great. You can come in and interlocute between us, or you can just come up and tell me to stop talking if I get too carried away. Never happens.
I want to hear. Go ahead, you and Mike do your thing. I want to hear Mike sing.
All
Mike,
right.
rant.
All right.
Oh, all right. So I'm going to let Mike do a little talking. Mike, what's been pissing you off this week?
Again, the shows are coming back on. We had freaking that break for all the virus shit. The show Bull is actually a good freaking show. I enjoy it. But they must think we're all in freaking second grade. It's it's a courtroom drama. They have a trial science company. The only show where the freaking trial starts 2 days after the freaking crime. It's freaking this episode last week. So a corrections officer gets his nose broken. Now they got to have an arraignment. They got to get a trial date. They got to do discovery. Now this trial science company, they got to research the jurors. Then they got to find jurors to mirror those exactly so they can see how the trial's freaking going. Now the freaking corrections officer's on the stand testifying with a freaking bandage on his nose. So either the guy's nose has been broke for 9 freaking months, or they're that freaking stupid to say, hey, somebody might realize that the trial doesn't happen 24 hours after the freaking crime. I'm like, these are so simple to fix these stupid errors. I mean, did we not know he's going to testify? We're going to know he was the corrections officer involved in the freaking incident. It's just so freaking, gets me so freaking enraged when they think we're freaking imbeciles. The trial doesn't start anytime freaking, you got to go in front of a judge, you got to get arraigned, you got to have the pretrial. They have the whole jury picked out. Everything's done in 24 freaking hours. It's so freaking stupid. And that's it. And Dr. Phil this is his show. Him and his son. This is that's their show, Bull. And come on, Dr. Phil, you keep saying how intelligent you are. Stop with the freaking stupidity.
You know what? I have to say this is funny because, number one, Dr. Phil just annoys the crap out of me. I mean, he comes on and he's got all this great advice. Yeah. Sometimes I'm just like, look, I was born I wasn't born last night, but I wasn't born last night. I may be kind of dim, but when I hear a lot of the things he said, now I know he does help a lot of people. And, it's interesting. One of his best friends is Ron White, He was a bigger drunk than I was, and I love Ron White. I'd love to sit and have him on the show. Even I hope he's liquored up, because I always said he's somebody I'd like to just sit down with a good glass of bourbon and go to town for an hour, because I find him hilariously funny. You know, Mike, for everybody watching, Mike was a New York City police officer for many years. Our other guest, Dave from Southern Steel, was also on the job for 20, 30 years. You guys are both retired. Steve is one of the. It's funny because Dave, I'm going to ask him about it when he comes on, about how when he does band auditions, you know, musicians have all kinds of freaking crazy habits, and I wonder how many people, when he's asked them, they ask him what he does for a job at the audition. I wonder how many just look at him and go, "Oh, you're a police officer." I know he doesn't carry around with any, drug addicts or anything like that, other than me in my old days. I'm kidding. I wasn't a drug addict. Did like my whiskey. To talk about this, tell me a couple of stories from the job. Let's have the rant of the day. Like, what is one of the more interesting episodes that, just think of some crazy day, throw a dartboard.
I told you, did I tell you the story about when they were throwing the bullets, right? The couple was throwing bullets at each other.
Oh, no, I did not hear that.
We get called out on a job, so there's no gun. It was just these two freaking, I can't remember if it was a husband and wife or a husband and a husband. I really don't remember. But they were literally in the house throwing 38 caliber bullets at each other. Like, they didn't have a freaking gun. I'm like, you got it. The worst thing I ever came upon, though, was I was working in Bedford-Stuyvesant. It was a bad neighborhood. And we got called into the projects. This lady was giving birth, and literally, like, as she was giving birth, the roaches were literally crawling all over her. Like, there were
Lord have mercy.
There was literally like a million in the apartment. Like, they were all over the walls. It was so freaking horrific. And you say, I don't care what anybody's circumstances in life. Nobody should be living like that. No, I don't care. And that was like, it was a city-owned housing project. And that was so freaking horrible. And then one time another one that was bad was a girl split her mother's head open with an axe. And
oh, Lord have mercy.
Yeah. Now I'll tell you a story. Now I don't know if you know. I don't know who was in this picture. You know, back then we laughed at it. Now, if it ever happened, you talk about people being fired, it would freaking be insane. But this lady, and she was probably close to 300 pounds. She hung herself.
Oh.
Now where these guys went and got the fishing poles, I don't know, unless they keep them in their freaking car. But they actually did the photo with the lady in the middle, like they were in a fishing tournament. And they had, Bed-Stuy, 300 pounds. I mean, cops have to laugh at shit. It's the only way you keep your freaking mind straight. But now, God forbid that ever, if that family ever knew, or, and this is 30 years ago, 25 years ago. But at the time, it was freaking funny. But now when you look back, it was so.
I get it, because I think anybody who faces, my daughter's in the medical field, and I think people have to deal with people have to deal with the worst and best of society. Frequently deal more often with the worst than the best. And I don't care what color you are. If you're an asshole, you're an asshole. Yeah. Doesn't matter where you come from. If you're here in New York, I don't care, as long as you're here hustling like the rest of us and making a living. Welcome on in, Yeah. But we do see things, and I've been in a band, and I can tell some horror stories. But my show, I try not to be too down about stuff. I think most cops, nurses, doctors, people who are like constantly firefighters, they deal with the public, and they usually have to only deal with the worst people, because the normal people, they know, they get a ticket, they're going to go pay it. They're not going to pull a gun and get crazy with you. But, I was in New York a couple of weeks ago, and the only thing I see a lot more of is more crazy in the street, because the cops aren't around much. Yeah. And, they have a tough job in New York on a good day. But since the whole COVID started, it's just off its chain. But enough about that.
Just to tell you, one other thing we don't think of, and we should, is like tow truck drivers. They see some shit that people should never see in their lives. And we don't really consider them as first responders, but in a way they are.
Yes.
And they come across decapitations. They come across some horrific accidents. And we never really think of them when we think of, them suffering from PTSD and that kind of stuff.
Right.
But, they're right out there with the rest of us.
Sure.
But now,
Well,
I got a rant though today. Cory Booker, who of course he's not really anybody's favorite freaking senator from New Jersey or any other state. So he put a bill in yesterday in Congress. He wants college athletes to be paid. Under his proposal, for example, like he said, like the starting quarterback for Clemson, he would have been paid $175,000 this year. For what? So now the problem with the bill is the players would be paid based on a formula of how much revenue that particular player brings into the school. So like they said, in this situation, somebody on special teams that nobody even knows who his name is, he's going to get zero. But why? Why now all of a sudden this push? We already have the thing going with the NCAA to let them, for the athlete themselves to profit off their names. I think that's enough. Because there's no more college sports, we're going to start paying the athletes. But he says he's going to get it passed, and he played football at Stanford, and it wasn't right that he wasn't paid. But you know what? You got a free college scholarship.
I have to mention something, and nothing to many athletes who really are smart and go to college. I'm sorry, any of us who've been in college know that the star athletes, the classes are weighted so that you can get
ridiculous.
You can do nothing and be completely stupid, and you can leave without being able to read, write, understand contracts. And what I say is I don't have anything against anybody. If the guy can make $2 million a week or whatever he gets, good for him.
That's right. Yeah.
But he doesn't. They already get an easy pass in college. If you're talented, you get a free ride. You get all kinds of perks. You get endorsement deals. You can make some money. You may not be able to make.
Yeah, you only need a 2.0 grade average to keep your scholarships.
Exactly. And again, that to me is what's wrong. And then the other thing, while I'm bragging on football, I'm of the opinion that most businesses have to have a free trading field to play on. You have to have referees, rules, and things like that. And they get an antitrust exemption, the only one in the United States, and it's worth a tremendous amount of money. Now, if you look at the amount of money the NFL charges for their advertising at the games, at the Super Bowl, how they treat the bands at the lower end who play at the VIP tents, they treat them like crap. Not all of them. It's not uniform. Depending on the team, if you're an entertainer and you go to work for them, you might get paid really good by one franchise because that's just how they operate their franchise. But there's no rule. And the fact is,
value musicians more than others and that kind of stuff. Yeah.
You're right. And why doesn't hockey or baseball or any of those? They don't have an antitrust exemption. So I personally just think it's like a lot of laws. It's gone past the time where it makes any sense. They make billions of dollars.
Well, I don't know if you saw, but now the Supreme Court agreed to listen to the case because the NCAA wants an antitrust exemption. So the Supreme Court is going to hear the case in January, and they will rule probably by June. Why? Why do you need an antitrust exemption? It's ridiculous. First of all, it's college. All the money should be going back into the college. Here's why I feel. With all the money these colleges make off these sports, nobody should be paying to go to college. I
agree. They don't do it. What about musicians? What about talented gymnastics people? Whatever you do, it's like why the Olympics kind of suck in my mind these days. I'll still watch it because I like to watch certain sports. However, I don't know. The latest one is like breakdancing as a sport. I'm sorry, no offense. I see people are extremely talented who breakdance, but that's an art. That's a cultural phenomenon. It's not something that. And the other issue with the Olympics is the sports athletes. They have pros in there now, and I think it's just ridiculous. Like back when the Americans beat the Russians back in the 90s, it was the 80s actually.
Actually, 1980,
Yeah, and the thing was, they were playing pros against our amateurs, and we kicked their ass. Now we send out guys from the Rangers. You see all these basketball stars. It's about athletes, but it's like bands starting from the bottom, and they don't get paid until they make a big payoff. But
it sucks because we had no choice because the Olympic Committee let Russia do it year in and year out. Russia, China, all these. So we had no choice but to join the party and say, hey, I guess we'll, Speaking of which, though, I do want to wish some prayers for Henrik Lundqvist. He announced today that he signed that one-year deal with the Capitals, but he's going to have to. He has heart problems. He's been getting treatment for the last couple of weeks, and he definitely will not be able to play hockey for at least a year. Probably his career is probably over, but hopefully
Wow.
everything that is wrong with his heart they could take care of. He's a young guy.
Right.
He's only, I think, 38 or 39.
Wow,
So,
that's horrible. Well, we keep him in our prayers for sure, because that's rough, And
yeah.
I was going to ask you while we're talking, how's your son Michael doing?
He's doing good. He had his first chemo treatment. Well, the first new chemo treatment Wednesday. It was actually pretty scary. He had a bad reaction. My ex-wife, his mom was there with him, and because they changed the chemo drugs this time, and his heart rate started going through the roof. So she was like panicking. There was like 5 or 6 nurses working to stabilize him, and finally,
Right.
after enough Benadryl and stuff, they were able to do the chemo. He goes back again Wednesday. I mean, he feels great now. And then Angie had her shoulder replaced, and
Right.
she's really having a rough time with the pain. Oh, she's dying.
Oh, I can only imagine.
Yeah.
I'm due to have that same surgery at some point, but I'm holding out. I can live with pain. I'm a drummer. I tell people, man, you want pain, whack yourself with a 2B in the wrist.
Yeah.
Try and hold your stick. You better be able to switch hands if you're a smart drummer, because you're going to hit yourself. I had a stick. There's a scar on my neck. It broke, flew up and stuck in my neck. And so I'm like this. I'm going, is there something stuck? And then I touched it. I'm like, And, I was afraid to pull it out. I didn't know if I was going to be like, and I pulled it out, put my hand up, saw a little blood, but I didn't see the carotid artery flow. So I was like, okay, I'm cool. I'll be back right. I'm just going for the show. But anyway, musicians are like athletes. They play for a long time, whether you're a guitar player, drummer, or bass player. I tell people, it's real easy. Just go out and try it for 4 hours. In fact, here's what you do. You can sit at my drum set. I'll set the timer. And you can sit here and play as hard as you can. I'll give you a break every hour, 15 minutes.
Wow, I can't imagine.
A lot goes into it.
When I watched you practice the other day, me and Angie, our minds were totally freaking blown at how fast you were. And when you flipped the drumsticks and changed your position, I was like, holy shit.
Well, I'm just having fun. I've been doing this so long, people go, well, that looks easy. And I tell them, well, that didn't always. It takes a long time to make, things look easy. And
I feel like Jerry Lewis, like I am, with no coordination at all. That's like, to me, that's freaking, you're like Beethoven on those things.
Hey, man, I can teach you to play a song in a half an hour. And if you practiced it for a week, I'd teach you another one the next week. And I would just show you. In fact, when I teach a drum lesson, I haven't done any lessons in a long time, but when I was doing it, I would not only teach the drummer standard, traditional, and match script, but I play kind of like Ringo. I play left-handed on a right-handed kit. I am ambidextrous. My daughter's a lefty, and I would have been a lefty, except the nuns slapped the crap out of me if you held your pencil with your left hand. They're like, we'll tie this to your chair.
From Catholic school then.
They just, where I went, the Mother Superior frowned on that. I don't know, probably thought it was the hand of the devil. God knows I get into trouble with either hand. He's real easy.
That's crazy. I will tell you one funny story about the music, though. My son Michael, when he was little, I bought him a baby grand piano, and he was taking lessons. And if he would have practiced, oh my God, the kid, because he's got this memory that's just insane. So now Brian's taking a lesson one day. Mikey's sitting on the couch reading or whatever, and he yells out to Brian, "Brian, you missed that. That was a C with your a middle C with your right thumb." And me and his mom are looking at each other like, "Holy shit." He's not even freaking by the piano, and he could tell the note was missed. What thumb? I was like, oh. But he just didn't. He wasn't interested. I mean, he had a really cute piano teacher. He was really interested in that. But as far as getting him to practice was out of the question. He wanted no part.
Well, that happens. Nothing worse than I got to say, really, it's terrible. You're a teenage guy, and you've got some hot college chick teaching you to play anything. You're just sitting there like,
Yeah. I mean, he was probably like 15, 16 at the time. And, she was probably 22, 23. She was a music teacher in one of the schools. And that's all he did. He was just crazy.
Oh, can you show me that again and brush your breast on my shoulder once?
He practiced. Oh, my God. With his memory, he knew like, hey, you just missed. That was a C with the middle. I was like, oh, my God.
Wow.
So crazy.
Well, I think it's great. We always love having you on, and I hope you'll stick around for a little bit. We're going to have,
Definitely.
We're going to roll. We're at the quarter hour or a little past, which is fine. Next up, we're going to have Dave, Southern Steel. And I hope everybody out there today, we have Flash Gordon from Florida, the band The Pundits, a band I produced some music for back in the day.
Wow.
I'm very proud of the stuff I did with them. They were just a great band. They came in, they were so well rehearsed. They sat down. we knocked it out. I mean, we just were clipping through the tins, and it was a lot of fun. And I haven't talked to him in like 20 years now, so it's kind of fun. I reached out for everybody watching. I have started writing a book. It's called Across Tampa Bay, the music of the Bay Area the musical history of the Bay Area from 1960 to the present.
Wow,
And
that's
I reached out to Flash because right now I have about 350 people, and every time I call somebody, I get another 5 people added that I've forgotten about. But
wow.
I've had a lot of assistance, and I can't tell you, I'm very thankful. If anybody's watching it, if I haven't reached out to you and you've been a player in the Tampa music scene, and what I mean professionally working from 1960 until now, it's going to be fairly exhaustive. We're going to cover the studios, the music stores, the people who made the best repair shops. It's a very small music community nationally. You never realize how many people know each other. And I'm going to do my best to really put Tampa's music scene back on the map. I'm not going to do anything that's going to make their scene get better, but it will hopefully bring some attention to it because there's so many amazing talents that have come out of Tampa Bay. And going back to the 60s, people really forget how many people. And of course, we had our period of the 80s and 90s with heavy metal. We've had some excellent country bands. We have Goombi Ortiz has lived there for 40, 50 years, plays with Al Di Meola. For anybody watching, you can see that on my show. And I guess we're going to roll out with that. So everybody stick around. We're going to be right back. We're going to have Dave of Southern Steel, and we're going to talk to him about all kinds of great stuff.
Thanks a lot,
I
buddy.
always love talking music, and we hope you guys do too. Mike, I'll see you in a little bit.
I'll be here. Okay.
All right, buddy.
Questions, comments, click on the chat box.
All right. Live with Neil. Here we are. We are just half past the hour, and we have Dave Sorber of Southern Steel. He's sitting here. He looks like they locked him in the freezer, and he's doing the best job to stay warm. Hopefully they'll get him out before the air gets too thick in there. Dave, if you need to get out, tap out or something, give us a sign that you're losing consciousness. All right. So tell me, man, how are you doing in this COVID, and just how's life?
Well, trying to keep it together, like all musicians, everything was kind of snapping and then it all went away. So
Yes.
right now, everybody's kind of just, waiting with bated breath for something to happen to, make
Right.
things come back to life again. So we're all in suspended animation, so to speak.
Right. Well, everybody I've talked to, I've stopped really, I already know the answers most people are going to give me, but, there's just such a painful thing for musicians, artists, servers, bartenders, the dishwashers, the amount of people who work in our industry that people don't think that we care about. But I know you guys, we know how to treat our clubs with respect and, act like professionals.
Absolutely.
And we care about those people a lot. I know I've got great friends, and I believe you should be nice to everybody, man. I don't care if it's the janitor or the CEO of a company. Everybody deserves respect. And in my case, I just feel terrible for them. They've lived, some of them, a very marginal life. I mean, you get a lot of single moms. You got people who bust their ass just to make enough, and those tips and stuff, when that all goes away, I mean, these folks are on the edge of just losing everything they have. And lots of people are in many different socioeconomic status. So I miss the fact that, when we treat the club owner and the people there with respect, you can have friends from the top to bottom of the organization. They just love you. They become family almost. And I think at my regular gigs over the years, I just wonder about what a lot of my old friends are doing now. So that said, I started the show because of COVID. No gigs, no income coming in, and still no income coming in. But that's okay, because doing something I like to do is hang out with musicians and hear what they got going on. So talk about what you've been doing a little bit during this musically. You've talked about some new stuff coming up, and
Yeah, I've been working in my studio. I've got a series of, half-finished songs. Talking to the guys, making sure everybody's still, trying to keep it together. Other than that,
Right.
Spend a lot of time with my dog.
Oh, right. Well,
So,
I
you
do a
know,
lot of playing. I have a couple of cats, and they keep me great company. I'm surprised they're not bouncing around here. What do you have for pets? You got anything great, large, crazy, different snakes?
yeah, I got a big old greyhound.
All right. Well, cool. Those are great dogs. One of my ex-girlfriends had a greyhound, and they lived on a circular neighborhood over in Rumson, and it had a little inlet, but then it was like the size of a big greyhound track. And that dog would get loose in the neighborhood at like 80 miles an hour, just running amok, having that free feeling greyhound. It must just feel great to run. I mean, it's like riding a motorcycle. And how old's your dog?
She's just 2.
All right. Well, that's cool. Nothing like having a nice adolescent pet. They're a lot of fun.
Well, I mean, she's my 9th greyhound over several, like 25 years.
So you do rescue dogs? Is that
My
how
wife
you've
and
got?
I actually used to work with an organization years ago.
Very good. Very good. Well, we love people who like animals. I figure if you got a spot in your heart for an animal, you'll treat people good too.
There you go.
They have a sense. They just recently published a study that said what we all knew already. Animals can detect, people who are kind of dangerous or smell off or just have bad intent. And it's interesting. Like they're using beagles to check for COVID. So our four-footed buddies are pretty cool.
I never trust a person your dog doesn't like.
I agree with you. I mean, I've had my dogs, and I have a couple that would just sit. Like I had a big old Malamute, and if somebody was a little shady around the edges, he wouldn't be over there wagging his tail. He'd just sort of sit there and he had this poker face. And then somebody would see him looking at him, and they'd go, "Is he bad?" I said, no, he's cool. Just don't make any fast moves. He might get a little excited. It keeps them on their toes. My dog probably wouldn't have attacked them or done shit unless he got aggressive towards my family, my kids. But he sure looked big and fierce, like a 120-pound dog. And when I first got him, my girlfriend had this animal. And first time I went over to give her a hug, we were watching TV. Dog jumped up and bit me on the ass. I was like, oh! I just looked at him. He was sitting on the couch at eye level looking at me. He was like, I don't know what you're doing, but you better tighten up, dude. And it was great fun. So tell me, who's the lineup in Southern Steel at this point?
Currently, it's a six member band. I have my keyboard player who's been around for a lot of years, Tom Tibaldi. I've got a bass player named Ray Jandora. I've got a guitar player named Bob Moat. My front man is Tommy Kelly. And
excellent vocalist, by the way. You know that.
I'm sorry?
I said an excellent vocalist, but you know that.
Yeah, I mean, we do what we can do, and
right.
Usually we're all right.
Absolutely. You're very humble.
Well, there's no point in having a big head.
I agree with you, man, and I think you're a great guy. I always have. I can tell from the first time. You're into what you do. You care about it, and I know how hard it is to run a band for long periods of time. The personnel changes. There's always something you got. But I don't know if there's a better feeling in life than playing music with a bunch of great people and entertaining the audience. It's just the best feeling I know of, other than, a few things I won't get into.
Playing live is it's that synergy that, you get pumped as a band and as the music starts to happen,
right.
You're vibing off the other guys playing. And it's really kicking in, and you start getting the goosebumps. And then when the crowd reacts, I mean, it's just like, bam, everything is, and the more excited they get, the harder you work, and the harder you work, the more excited they get. And it's amazing, I wish every person could experience that.
Yes.
Because it's something that you can't explain it.
Well, I think, one of the reasons you're successful is the fact that you've always known what you're doing. When you know what's got the level you have to be at, and when you hire people, I don't know about you, but for me, a lot of that process is about what a good human they have to be. I don't care if they're the best player in the world. If they're good at a certain level, it's more about their attitude, their disposition, their timeliness.
Well, absolutely, absolutely. You want good people around you, and it just makes your job easier. In the long run. Nobody wants a guy that's a pain in the butt. But
no. I know I've tolerated people who are difficult for a while if they were really good, but they're not the kind of people you have a long-lasting musical relationship with. And
well, it's like the honeymoon. You get people in, and you do what you can do, and if it becomes problematic, well, usually they leave on their own. Because they're just not getting what they think they need. But I think that's the nature of bands. I think it was. Tom Petty was once quoted as saying, "Every band is on the verge of breaking up every minute of every day."
Well, good old Tom, he ought to know. And I read his book, which I felt was fabulous. It was written right at around the time he died, and he had authorized it. And I learned a lot about how to deal, in my own small way. I don't have half the problems Tom has, because every zero you add to your bank account, you got a whole new set of problems you couldn't exist until you have it. And I liked his comment too, that he looks at himself as a concerned, benevolent brother or father.
Well, yeah,
and he wants to keep his boys happy. If you think about it, when he first came up, he was signed, and the people who had been watching him or had been in the band in the earlier days, some of them went away, but like Mike Campbell's been with him since they were 17, playing in Gainesville. And when he went and did his solo album, I read in the book that, it was really hard for the guys in the band. A couple of them played on his first solo record, but they were kind of in that, oh my gosh, what's going to happen now? Is Tom going to run off and just be a solo artist? And he handled a lot of those situations with a lot of grace. And it's the kind of wisdom you get from, if you think about it, as an entertainer of any kind, you hear all kinds of BS all day long from people who want to get close to you, or they want to get something from you. They want, that phone call. Hey, man, you don't hear from somebody for months. If you get a gig with somebody who's kind of happening, and you get this call from somebody who's like, oh, wow, man, how you doing? I haven't seen you in like 6 months, but hey, can you give me some passes backstage to the show? And I'm
that happens.
I'm sorry, dude. I love to, but the promoter, I'm not buying you tickets to get in. I'm sorry. This is my job. You want to come hear me play and hang? Come to my house at rehearsal.
Oh,
you get a free pass in, But
right.
It's funny, the nature of the biz. Tell me, there's some of the more, over the years you've seen it all. Tell me some funny stories that have happened that you stick in your memory, like being at a gig and it's such a broad category of crazy shit at a gig, but give me a few examples.
Unfortunately, I don't think most of them can be mentioned here.
Right. Well, we are above 21 only, so we can't say anything too graphic, and we like to stay within the bounds of taste.
Well, yeah, look, it's rock and roll. Things happen. Let's just leave it at that. I don't think we need to delve into the dark side of what goes on.
Well, yes, the dark side of it. There's many things that I've seen. It's like you tell people when you're in a band, you see things. Sometimes you just don't know what you're looking at, and you don't want to see it again.
And sometimes when you go to your friends' gigs, you see all sorts of things that you were never privy to before.
Well, yes. Yeah, and that's the truth of that is exactly the case. Usually the people that come to see you after a show will be like, hey, did you see? Like, dude, I was busy. I was playing. So, no, I didn't see that, Yeah,
yeah, right. That's very true. So, Julie, you have any questions you'd like to ask Dave while we're here? Julie is a bass player, and I wouldn't say, but she's an exceptional bass player, and she's joining an incredible band. And I'll let her talk about her band. But what do you have for Dave, Julie?
Yeah, I just want to hear more about why you got into the industry, and I guess emotionally. Were you ever one of those people who, and I know as artists, we all suffer and struggle with this, but like, did you
Right.
ever have like some severe anxiety or anything like that when you first started to play? Because I know there's a lot of younger musicians out there that watch us and are trying to, navigate through something like that.
Right. My wife teases me because early on, when I, of course, was playing out, I spent more time working, messing with my amplifier, with my back turned to the audience. Of course, most of that is, you just, things aren't right. You're not comfortable, and now it's, after you do it after a period of time, it's almost, second nature, you do it, you don't even think about it,
Yes. And how long did it take you to get to that point? I mean, to the point where you were,
well, my situation is kind of funny. I had
Oh,
played probably a good from the time I was 16 through till the time I was about 25 or 26. And I, various bands, trying to get something happening, some traction, what have you. And at that point, it was slow going, and you still didn't have it together. Because you're still trying to find people that you can rely on, and I think a lot of that comes from the comfort of the people you're playing with, and of course, your level of expertise. I mean, when it's early, you're trying to do something that you're barely hanging on to, and you just want to make it happen.
Mm-hmm.
And I think in that fact, you tend to have a little more stress about it, and you're not as like paying attention. You're more focused on what you're doing than having a good time. And I think that translates into, sometimes a bad performance. It's one of those, you get out there and you're like, oh man, this is just like you're struggling or whatever early on, and of course, unless you're really high, drunk, or otherwise, you just don't care. But that's a whole other issue.
No, but see, and that's good because it's an important thing, about it happens, especially, with athletes too, and everything is just that performance anxiety. And then once you get stuck in that loop, it's hard to break out of it, especially when you're new and you're green and you're going in. And, I'd say it's something that every performer, musician, artist, athlete has to go through at some point, is that performance anxiety and get over it. So they can really access all of their talent, and it's not being held back by that.
Yeah, no, I absolutely agree with that. And again, it's like anything, the first time you ride a bike, you're not really good at it. Yeah. By the fourth time you fall, you kind of go, I think I got this. Because you're no longer afraid, Unfortunately, the human psyche of things is that, we're afraid of the unknown. Okay. We're not afraid of anything particular. We're just afraid of what could possibly happen. And I think, you find people that, the more they do it, the more comfortable they get, and the more relaxed they are, the better they get at it, because they're not sweating the little stuff because they have it down. And, the other answer to that is practice, 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 practice.
Yeah, exactly. We talk about a lot that in with my current band is, kids today. And I never thought I'd say that, but oh my God, I'm my parents now, kids today, the things that they think that they need to do, they just need to join a TV show contest and win that. And then they're automatically a musician.
Well, the thing that's concerning me right now is, and I read an article, I don't know, probably 3 or 4 years ago, and it talked about how guitar sales are down. And well, the reason for that being is because today's generation is more interested in, and I'll use the expression, boy bands. Mm-hmm. They would rather learn to dance and sing than play an instrument. And it was funny when you remember that those games, they were the video game. It was Guitar Band or
Guitar Hero.
Guitar Hero.
Yeah, and my husband bought that.
If they spent as much time with a real guitar as they did playing the game, they'd be a pretty good guitar player.
I said that every single time because, like, my husband got it for Christmas, and I'm like, why would you do that? And I said, I'm already in a band. He said, well, so you can play at home. I'm like, what? If I want to do that, I'll just go pick up my actual bass or guitar and
there you go.
Or my piano. I don't want why do I need fake instruments when I have real ones?
Well, right.
There's like
And
no
I mean,
thought
look,
process.
so some people don't have an interest to put the time in.
Yeah, no,
You
you're
know,
right.
I mean, the reality of it is that, granted, some people are talented in that, you know, it's kind of, and I'll use God-given, I guess, where
Sure.
they kind of matriculate in very easily. And I'm not one of those people. I'm one of those get in the trench, dig till you get it down, and it's a repetition thing. You know, some people, they can look at stuff and just bang, it happens. Now my wife seems to think that happened that it does happen to me, but I don't see it that way.
Right.
Years ago, I bought a violin, an electric violin, because, you know, we do a lot of Southern rock. I thought maybe we could do some Charlie Daniels.
Yeah, there you
and
go.
I picked it up and started noodling around with it, you know, and I was
How was it?
actually getting some notes and stuff out of it. And she was like amazed. And I'm like, yeah, but I can't play it because I couldn't get my hand to turn around and, you know, far enough to play, you know, comfortably. But, you know, I guess it was sufficient. She was like, well, you had enough talent to, you know, it didn't sound like you were, you know, twisting a cat, you know, so I guess, you know, maybe I am in that regard, but you know, I don't see it that way. The way I see it is that I spend a lot of time simply working at my craft. You know, it's just a lot of repetition. I tell people that when I was a kid and learning to play, you know, and being Southern rock, you know, and I got into Southern rock because, well, you know, it's a riff fest. You know, it's very self-indulgent as a guitar player, you know, as opposed to like, you know, punk back in the 70s where, you know, there's not really a lead at most punk songs, you know, or if it is, it's like one note, you know.
Right. Yeah.
So I felt, you know, it was a little more self-indulgent. So, I mean, that's where I was drawn to. And, you know, I guess I liked the boogie song, is, you know, the kind of got a little movement to them. But ultimately, you know, it was the old school, you know, okay, you're sitting with your turntable and you're learning a riff. Now, I mean, today it's amazing. You know, you get a recorder, you record the song, and you can literally take a small phrase and it will put it on a loop and slow it down so you can just emulate the notes. I'm not, you know, trained. Everything I've done is by ear. So
good for you.
Back in the day, you know, it was the old arm of the record player. You know, my records look like I dragged them down the street. They have so many scratch marks in them from, you know, working up all that material. You know, I mean, Southern Steel as a band, you know, we've kind of made the band's reputation out of the fact that we replicate covers, obviously, in a tribute form. And when I say tribute, some people are like, well, you know, we play a lot of stuff in that 85 to 95% note for note from what the original was. And a lot of people come and they're like, holy cow, you know. One of the things I find amazing is, you know, you see some young guys come into the bar and, you know, we're ass deep in Green Grass and High Tides, you know, by the Outlaws. And, you know, you're tearing into those riffs and these kids are standing there like slack-jawed, like look at these old guys play, you know. And
like Guitar Hero.
For me, I get a kick out of that because it's like their mind is blown by some old guy. Now, when does that happen? You know,
isn't that an interesting phenomenon? I've noticed that too. You know, a lot of our people our age are always like, "Oh, those damn kids, they're all assholes. The little shits don't do any good. They're the world. What are they going to do without us?" But then I see like the people who dedicate themselves, young people, to play, say, Southern rock or jazz or whatever it is. But all the kids you see in music are really working to learn an instrument. They're like really on the ball kids. When I meet them, I'm like, wow, rock and roll is going to be okay in spite of the little, backstreet dancers.
And it's kind of what I started to say before was that right now, as a musician, if you're not, you know, going for lessons on you know, a daily basis, with the internet, there is such an enormous amount of information. So you can get educated through other means. So you're not sitting and learning theory and all of that. And you see so many kids that, you know, the kid is 14 and he plays like, you know, Randy Rhoads, you know, or, you know, pick an artist. There's a girl on the internet, her name escapes me, but this girl makes a point of going out and she literally replicates like all these classic rock guys' guitar solos. And when I say replicates them, I mean, if you closed your eyes, you'd think it was Clapton or whoever she was covering. And I mean, down to the ultimate nuance of how they bend it. You know, I mean, the girl is really good. She's got a great ear, and there's a bunch of them out there. There's a lot of amazing kids out there, and I dig the fact that these young kids are taking an interest in classic rock.
Sure.
You know,
right.
From a music standpoint, you know, think of it. Let's quickly look at our generation, right? You know, I was born in 1960. And, you know, you had doo-wop, and that kind of flamed by, you know, the Beatles came and they went, what's doo-wop? You know, and it was over. But think about how long classic rock has existed.
Right.
Yeah,
I mean,
longer
think about when we were growing up. How many doo-wop stations do you remember being on?
Right.
Right.
Right. Used to be all over up.
Right. You know, so like anything, I think rock as a genre, because, again, there's so many different fields in rock itself, that it makes a significant difference. You know, I mean, when you start getting, I mean, Southern rock, it happens to be my love, and a lot of people don't like it. They just don't get it. And hey, listen, cool, each their own. But I think, you know, there are so many different aspects and evolutions of rock per se, that there's a little bit of something, and it all falls under that same umbrella.
Well, okay, guys, we're getting up to we have about 15 minutes left. I'm sorry. Dave, let's reiterate to everybody, where can they find your music? What's the best way to track you down?
You can find us at www.southernsteelband.com. We also have a Facebook page, of course. We also have a group that I set up, which if you request to join it, it's Southern Steel Band Shows, or Southern Steel Shows. If you sign up and, you know, you friend me first, and then you can get in, and then we put out a blast every time we're playing. Unfortunately, right now, there's not a lot of hole to go to. I mean, we were very lucky
really,
this year.
I know, and it's awful. It really is.
We were very lucky this year with COVID. You know, not a lot of people got to play, but we managed to pull out, I think, 7 shows. They were all socially distanced outdoors for townships. So, you know, we were able to at least get out and play. Our fan base got to come out and see us play, and I think everybody has a good time. It's a high energy show. You know, again, as I said before, we replicate, you know, what we do, and I like to say almost to the letter, only because then it's still a little fresh, you know, rather than going, oh yeah, it sounds like the radio, which is okay, but you know, there's no essence to it.
I would say that there's a wide level of how, you know, bands that do covers, like excellent tribute bands. A lot of musicians show their nose, you know, they're like, oh, I don't know, I'm not going to do that. They're too proud. But I will say this, when people who like Southern rock go to see you, and I'm not just blowing smoke up your butt, I know what you guys do. I've played with you. I've seen the shows on YouTube, and I know, like, you go see you guys, it's like going to see a show. If you grew up listening to Leonard Skinner, Molly Hatchet, all those bands, you guys there's a lot of bands at this level, and you're like up there. All bands are equal, but I mean that with seriousness, and everybody watching.
I appreciate that. Southern Steel was kind of my baby. I started it, you know, at this point now, 16 years ago, I guess. And I'm going to give a shout out to the guys from Southern Cross. At the time that I was putting it together, I had a couple of my ideology of it is that back in the day when I was going to bars and stuff and cutting my teeth in Southern rock per se, Southern Cross was the staple. If you went to a rock concert for a Southern rock band in this area, Southern Cross opened the show. It was that simple. Those guys got the phone call, no matter what happened. If you went to see Molly Hatchet, they were opening the show. You went to see the Outlaws, etc. And I mean, the Fountain Casino was right around the corner from where I grew up, and they played there every time somebody came in. And that was a 6,000, I guess, roughly a 6,000 person facility. And subsequently, my ideology was to get us to that point where we got the phone call. And so we've done a lot of openings for a lot of the nationally touring acts. Right. And if you'll indulge me, I can give you a quick rundown.
Sure, of course.
We've opened for Leslie West. We've opened for Foghat. We've opened for Dickie Betts and Great Southern.
We just had his son on the show last
week. I
week.
saw that. I was looking at some of your stuff. I saw that. We've also opened for Molly Hatchet. We've opened for the Artemis Pyle Band. And Artemis, if you don't know who he is, he was the drummer in Leonard Skinner. He has an excellent.
I knew him pretty good in Florida. That's a small world. Yeah, great guy.
We've opened for Marshall Tucker easily 6 times, 7 times, and the Outlaws easily 10 or 15 times, round figures. So we've done a lot of these shows, which, of course, it's helped our growth, and frankly, it's helped our fan base. You know, where else can you see, for the sake of discussion, 4,000 people that dig what you do locally?
Right.
You do it by opening for the guys that they love, and then they come to see you when those guys aren't around.
Absolutely. Well, listen, Dave, I'm really happy to have you on with us, and I know when all this ends, all you got to do, just give me a call when you have some new shows and stuff. We'll always help you out any way we can, and I'd like to have back when you get back to Rome. Let's have you back on so we can talk about the end of the. I think when all the energy people have pent up, when they finally get a vaccine and people start chilling, the gigs are going to be ridiculous for a while. It's just going to be.
That's my hope. My hope, of course, is when the dust settles and everyone's comfortable to come out and they don't have to wear masks to be around somebody. I think that the pendulum is going to swing back with a vengeance.
Right.
And
I agree.
I'm hoping. We had a lot of shows that were starting to get booked. We acquired an agent last year, and things were really looking good. And then COVID hit, and it all jumped in the hopper. So, I'm hoping it comes back again, and we're super busy.
Well, I hope so too. And we'll be talking. I'll talk to you in the next couple of days after we do the show, and just see. I'll check in with you from time to time. Plus, I'm always looking at your page anyway. So.
Alrighty. Well, hey, thank you. I was humbled to be asked to be on your show.
Thank you.
Good luck with it. I know it's relatively new. I wish you a lot of success. You're a good dude.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Hopefully we can come back and I don't know, maybe someday we'll get the whole band on all at once.
Well, I'd like to, next time you get out, I have a bunch of friends I just want to go see and hang with. So I'll come out and maybe do a live remote from one of your shows. And
that'd be cool.
It's fun, and it's better than this works good. I can sit here and we can talk all night about guitars or whatever.
Yeah, who's going to listen to this
feeling in the flesh? All right. Well, everybody who's watching, next up we have the amazing and talented Flash Gordon from Clearwater, Florida. We're going to talk about his club, his music, the music I worked on with him, and the music that they have. They have a brand new album, and a couple of my great friends from Tampa have produced it. And he's just got it going on. And hopefully I'm going to make sure I can play his song on my next record, which I worked on it 20 years ago. And, imitation's the best form of flattery sometimes. He's just got a great song. So
thanks for watching. We'll see you next week, live with Neve.
That was a lie.
What's a lie?
The computer was lying. No, we're still on.
What happened? Oh, okay. Are we still on? Flash, are you still out there?
I am. And we've been extremely lucky. I haven't had anyone walk into the store today, so it's been like.
Oh wow, you're doing it. You're down at the store. I see your album behind you. I love it, man.
Well, and I also brought out the 2 albums you were talking about, the Across Tampa Bay albums, because when I moved to this store 15 years ago after the club burned down and all that, I tried to sell local CDs, right? And I put this A-frame sign right out on Missouri Avenue, which is where I am these days. And this fellow walked in the door and he says, "Hey, I'm your friendly sign inspector." And I said, "What do you mean?" He says, "Well, A-frame signs aren't allowed on Missouri Avenue." And I said, "What do you mean? I mean, this is working." I had people stopping and saying, "Hey, what local bands have you got music for?" Right? Because I've always been a promoter. I mean, I've been a player for a long time, but I've been a promoter. And he told me that if my store was on Cleveland Street, downtown Clearwater, it'd be fine to have an A-frame sign, but here on Missouri Avenue, it's not allowed. And I said to him, oh, so if it said L. Ron Hubbard CDs and not local CDs, it'd be fine, right? And he did a zip his mouth, thing, and he says, "Look, Flash, I moved downtown because of Club More. I miss it as much as you do. I don't think that's possible, but that's what he said.
Right.
And I had to call all of these musicians that I had their CDs here, and I said, look, they won't let me promote, what I'm trying to do, which is promote your music. So sadly enough, I brought the A-frame sign in and gave a lot of people their CDs back, but I still had these two, and I thought...
I love it. I'll tell you what, rather than me explain it, why don't you explain those two CDs from how you look at it from the outside in over the decades?
Well, that was back when the Pundits had done our first album in '94 and started touring behind it and playing shows and what have you. And with the same four guys that I'm working with, last week, right? Which is pretty amazing.
I always give my regards to your drummer. Great guy.
Greg the Hammer Turman on drums, and he's so consistent, and Jerry Gabardi on the bass. But Wally and I, Rockabilly Wally Estrada and I, we've played together since '92. All right, so we've had a few hiatuses in the continuum, but Wally and I formed the Pundits in '92, and then in '94 the other two gentlemen replaced the bass player and drummer that we had started with, and we made the album Hurricanes and Other Stormy Relationships, and then started, continued to write songs and when we got to '97, you had asked us to be a part of the Across the Tampa Bay, which the first one had a Christmas theme, right?
Yes.
And so it was perfect because we had an original Christmas song that ironically is the only song in the hundreds of songs that I've written that I didn't sit down and lyrically write out first. It was something where I had come back from where I grew up in Detroit, Michigan, Christmas time, and had an experience where I upset my mother for the 1,000,000th time. And Wally just started jamming on this riff, right? And I'm like, hey, that's pretty cool. And I had my little Sony portable tape recorder running, and I just, stream of consciousness, came up with this story about Mom send me money because I want to come home for Christmas. And so we came into your studio, which was way out in Sonota Sassa, or where the heck was it, East Hillsboro, and recorded that song for the first album, the '97 album. And then you asked us back in '98 to be a part of the Across the Tampa Bay album collection in '98. And that's when we did Trouble, which is a song I had written in memory of my sister, who had been murdered in 1998. And
I remember
the trouble
that.
only got worse because the son of a bitch that did it got out because he was not guilty. But anyway, the music thing, I wrote my first song when I was in 6th grade because we were planting a tree outside the elementary school. And ironically, they asked me to write a song, and I had not done any songwriting at that point, but I wrote a song called The Future, and there was a maple tree planted out by the elementary school where I still remember the chorus, come and see, come and see, come and see the future, come and see, come and see, come and see our tree. And I don't remember the verses, but that was the first song I wrote, when I was 12 years old or so. And still writing songs. And the neat thing about the Pundits now is that after not playing since 1999, in 2009, I rallied everybody back together to do a reunion show, one of which we did with the Shake Society, which was the group you were involved in.
Yes.
And so we played 3 shows in 2009 after not playing for 10 years. And then last year, I was driving around listening to the last live recording we did at Club More. And I said to myself, there's some songs on there that we had never done in the studio that really are worthy of being recorded. Right. So I called the guys up, right? And we talked a little bit over the course of 10 years from 09 to 19. But I said, any chance you guys would want to get together and record these 4 songs? And everybody was in. So we started that probably January of 2019, but we didn't even get together until June of 2019 because everyone's busy, right? And Jerry had a back issue and he wasn't walking for a couple months and all kinds of things, life got in the way. So,
right.
we started working in 2019 on the first 4 songs that I wanted to record. But I mean, I'm writing this song every day. So I had said to the guys, I've got a couple other songs that would be really great to work on with you guys, because it's so natural getting back together with you, working with you guys. It's just like it's meant to be. And anyway, so we started working on a song that I had recently written called Too Many People Dying That I Know. And then my shop burned up, and we got shut down for about 3 months' time. We didn't have power here until just about this time last year. And at that point, it was holidays and other life got in the way. So we got back together in June of this year to restart that song. And it's just like Steven Stamkos, who wasn't on the ice for 220 days, and he comes out and his 3-minute shift, he scores a goal, right, in the playoffs. I mean, that's pretty intense, right? So we start working on this song again, and we take it to the studio, working with Steve Connolly at Zen Recording.
And we love Steve Connolly. I have to just mention, I've had him on, and I hope when we write the book, are you Steve here? Oh, go ahead. Tend to your guest for a moment. You can tell him.
How did you think? No, that's all right. It's going to be a while. I got to say my piece. So if you got a minute, okay, they're going to hang out. So anyway, cool. Yeah, Steve worked on an album with us in 2017. I had written my last album I wrote for a group I called Swim and Salt. Okay, and Swim and Salt was my answer for Einstein, who is supposedly to have said, if you try the same thing over and over and expect different results, it's the definition of insanity, right? So
right.
I wrote this album in 2016-17 that I called Swim and Salt for my wife, Jo, to be the primary vocalist.
I'm here, but we just had some kind of an audio thing went weird. Check. Can you talk again?
Are you there?
Yes.
All right, I lost you though in my earbuds.
You might need to move a little forward. It sounds like something got weird.
Hang on, let me see what I can do.
Sure. My advice for next time when you're doing one of these. Okay, great. Yeah, much better. Now I hear you. So go ahead. I didn't mean to interrupt you. We had some Facebook or whatever. The internet's vexing us.
My phone rang. So anyway, 2017, when I was working with Steve Connolly on the Swim and Salt album, that was written for Jo, my wife, to be the primary vocalist, because Jo and I have been together since 1990, and she sung on many background vocals, throughout the Pundits years, and then after that. And so this album I wrote for her to be the vocalist, because that was my looking at trying a different approach to achieving perhaps some people noticing my songs. And we got to work with Steve Connolly and Ed Till, who played way back in the old days with Mad for Electra and the Ditch Flowers and other great groups.
Oh, I remember Ed very well. Is he still around?
Oh, yeah, he's still around. Yeah. He's still around, and wonderful guy. And Dan DeGregory played drums on that album, the Swim and Salt album, and Christian Walker on the bass, and then Jo, primary singer, 7 songs, and then me singing the other 3 songs. And so it was a great little trip. But so that's where we're going to go with the Pundits album. And so we started working on it last June, and it is now just in the final mix down. In fact, Steve transferred me a couple files last night that were based on my listening to the rough mixes and getting them to the final mix. But anyway, I've been talking nonstop, and believe it or not, I don't even indulge in caffeine these days. So this is just a water buzz that you're cooking on.
Oh,
so
man,
my
good
excitement
for you.
of music.
All right. Well, we like that. Tell me, have you got a guitar? Can you play us a tune or two?
Well, if you recall, I am just a flute player in a rock and roll band. And,
I recalled that. Yes, I do recall that. I just thought perhaps you, just it's okay. What I'm going to do is after you're off, I'm going to post some links. Why don't you tell us where can people find your stuff now? What's the best way to get a hold of you?
It's a weird way to go about it, but if you look at the internet at www.flashesworkbench, FLASHS WORKBENCH, flashesworkbench.com, I have a music page there. I have a remembrance to Club More there.
Great.
And, there's links to my other Swim and Salt site. So, and also links to the YouTube videos that I posted. In fact, last week, the bass player in the band before the Pundits that I was involved in, called The Sorted People, Dave Barber, who happens to live up in Connecticut these days, had posted a video maybe of Snowfall or something. And I sent him a video of us playing in 1988 or 89 at the warehouse party, doing a song where he just put this fabulous bass line down. And anyway, so I've got a lot of videos on YouTube. I've got videos of me sitting in with the Shakes. You remember that group?
You do? Can you digitize that and send me that?
Of course. Anything.
I would love to have it. If you have any of those days when we were all hanging together, because a lot of that stuff when I got divorced and moved has been lost. I have all the guys in the band. I have to pretty much ask everybody, Grant, Lee, Stuck, the usual suspects, hey, you got any shots? I want to use it on the show. And for everybody who's watching, Flashes from Clearwater, one of the reasons I reached out to Flash is because I'm working on a book. It's called Across Tampa Bay, The Musical History of the Bay Area from 1960 until the present. And tell you what, Flash, hold one of those up to the camera. If people out there, inquiring minds, want to know. If anybody out there wants a copy of this, you have to private message me. There they are. And the lovely, talented Flash is showing you the 2 albums. My friend Steve Grant and I of the Shakes, our keyboard player and a great dude, all around fun guy to hang with. I can't hang with the big dogs anymore because I've given up alcohol. So hanging out with those guys will just get me into all kinds of crazy trouble. And hell, I don't know if they can afford bail for the whole gang of us. I'm kidding. I do. I miss those guys, and those albums were great fun. There's all kinds of great people from the Bay Area on there. I mean, there's you guys. There's Ronnie Elliott. There's Kenny McGee. There's like a whole potpourri of people who are happening and who still are in the Bay Area. Joe Pop's another New York expat from Tampa. He's up here, and for those who don't know, he's making incredibly high-end boutique pedals that just sound amazing. I don't have one. I've just seen what he's done, and I've read about people who've, experienced them, and they're really hot. And for those of you who don't remember, Joe Pop was a member of the Tampa music scene for years and a lot of fun. But Flash, I'll tell you this, man. If you're ever up this way in the New York area, I'm looking at the city today a little bit. It's kind of gray. But, I'm 40 minutes by a boat into the city. You can either get dropped off up by the UN or down on Wall Street. And I just love it here. I'm looking out at the ocean. We have about a quarter of an inch of snow. And I know you guys are in the 70s today. But, it's great to see you here, man. And if I'm down, I'm trying to have a producers round table that we do maybe at George's or at Steve's place. I don't really care, but I'm going to get all the usual suspects who produce and make music great. And, when I talk to Steve again next time, I'm planning to have him back on the show because we've upgraded how we do things. Like now we can switch it. When we started this, it was just an iPhone. It was a iPad. In my first interview with anybody quality, I interviewed Warren Zevon's wife. And it was like within a week or two of me starting the show. And I had to, all communication went to hell. And I was using Facebook, and I had to have a camera aimed at my iPad so that the audience could see. In spite of the horrendous tech quality, the questioning, and she was really a wonderful interviewee, and just a great guest. But the tech quality sucked, but we're moving forward. Flash, I hope that you guys get things simmered down with COVID like we all do. And, I'll talk to you again because I still want to play one of your tunes. And now that we have some time, but actually, I'm going to have you play on it if you'll be so kind to do the flute and stuff, because I'd be honored if you would.
Well, I'd be more than happy.
Well, you have obviously recording tools at home, so I can just send you a track and you can overdub the flute and we'll fly it. It's great, isn't it? The tech we can enjoy, like we can sit here and talk. And I love the technology. I have to say it. Sometimes it fucks us up pretty good, but most of the time, it's just there and works, almost like magic.
Well, this is the first time I've done this sort of thing, and I'm happy to be burst in the bubble, with you, and that's cool. So,
hey man, it's great to catch up, and I'm going to be talking to you. Don't be a stranger. If you get a gig coming up, let me know, and I will be talking to you more at length for the book. That's something where I won't be broadcasting. I'll sit here with a pad or a recorder, and we'll talk about I'm going to categorize each year from 1960 until now. It probably won't be done till 20. I'm hoping 20. Let me think. Not next year. I'm thinking like 2022. Probably it'll get out. Yeah, but I have like 340 people in the Bay Area right now. It started there, then it went up to around 400, and I'm kind of weeding down. What I've done is the people I interview on the show give me a basic starting point to open the conversation. That way I can look at all the interviews before I interview somebody. I can look at all your promo. It takes a lot more time to write a book than people think, and to really get the research done, because I don't want to leave people out. And I'll also mention to any of your fans, if they know of anyone who should be in my book, it's going to take me a while, but please reach out. And Flash, if you know of any of the best sites in Tampa to kind of put out a call for musicians off the air, just send me a text. I'm on a few of the Tampa music sites, but I'm sure you, being local, a lot more places and people in the scene locally.
Well, I've been kind of sheltered the last, couple of years, because the fire at the shop kind of put things into a whirl, and then COVID and all that. And trying to get this album done. I mean, realistically, we started this 18 months ago, and we're just about done. And in fact, when Steve gets it mastered, it's going up to disc makers, and we're going to do it on vinyl, right? So,
excellent. Oh man, well, I can't wait. I hope you'll be sending us a promo copy so we can start playing it. And, I mean, look, man, anything I can do to help you out. We're all friends in this business. It's great getting back with old friends, and this is a new venture for me. We've done about 40 shows this year, starting in March of last year. Wow. And they're getting better. I have Lee Sklar coming on. I've had Jerry Murata, the drummer for Steely Dan, a bunch of other people. I'm getting some great guests. You can look through if you would, like and subscribe to our page on YouTube. If any of your fans like what we do, I do a lot of Tampa music on here because I'm doing two things at one time. I'm interviewing people who are part of the scene for my book, so I have everything in order. I can go, okay, I've done them. And it makes it easier because it's like starting a band, but I'm not a professional writer and I'm not a professional camera host on air guy. But, I'm cutting through it, and you learn quick. It's very similar to starting a band, both of these projects. I'm lucky to have Julie. Mike Imparato has left us. Julie, I'm bringing you in for a second before we roll, because I know you got to have some questions for Flash today. Come on, girl. We need a little woman's touch here in the questioning before we let him go. I know he has people standing by, so go ahead and bring some.
So,
Julie.
Hey, Flash, how you doing? So,
fine.
What was your inspiration that really got you going into music and really made you? I mean, I guess what I'm asking is, did you have inspiration, or were you born with that knowledge of knowing who you were and where your path led, and that you were going to be a creator and a musician?
Well, I grew up in Detroit, and I was born in '59, so I'm an old man. Look at myself; I'm a lot like I am. But music in the early days on Channel 8, which came out of Canada, and WKNR Keener 13, they would play Motown, of course, because Motown was happening. I mean, when my ears first woke up at 5 or 6 years old and I was tuned into music, it was Motown. And then shortly after, the Beatles hit the shores, and radio stations started playing the Beatles. And the cool thing was, back when AM radio was still happening like that, it was playing all kinds of music, right? I mean, they'd play Johnny Cash after Elvis Presley, and then they'd play the Beatles, and then they'd play the temps, and then they,
It's an AC station, adult contemporary hits. So
yeah. And so I wanted to be, I wanted to be a star from an early age. I mean, I wanted to figure out how to do it, whether it was to be an athlete or to be a musician or a rock star. And
I'm
my
sorry,
first hero.
What was your sport?
Well, the interesting thing is I've got these braces on my legs, which makes athletics challenging, although I still compete in many different things. But I played everything. I mean, I played hockey, even wearing skates, and my ankles would touch the ice because I didn't have strength in my ankles. But so I tried everything. But when my first record album I bought, my first LP was James Gang, Rides Again. And that music was really unique because it wasn't just rock and roll. There was funk and there was, all kinds of different elements to it. And then Alice Cooper was my first actual hero because he was a Detroiter and I was a Detroiter, even though he got his start out in Arizona. And then David Bowie, opened my head to a whole different perspective and different music. But then I started playing the flute at the age of 14. And I had an English teacher named Charles Rossi. I wonder where he is today. But he said, look, if you're a flute player, sure, Ian Anderson, brilliant flute player, no question about it. But listen to Yusef Lateef, and listen to Herbie Mann, and listen to Hubert Laws. So at one point, I sold every rock and roll record I had, except for a few, and bought jazz records. And back then in the 70s, CTI label, Creed Taylor label, was putting out new albums by Hubert Laws, and they had Benson on guitar and Ron Carter on bass and Bob James on keyboards. And then when Bob James's new album came out, Hubert Laws was on flute. And, it was like, but I got into all of this unique music and started listening to jazz as well as rock. I mean, rock came back into my life. But I guess I just, started with that song that I wrote when I was 12 for the 6th grade maple tree planting, and just trying to keep music to creating and writing, and I don't know, so that was my inspiration for sure, was CKLW and WKNR Keener 13, just listening to the radio.
That's great. That's great. So, let's see what else. I had another question for you and I just lost it off the tip of my tongue.
Sorry.
Hey, toss it back to Neil. Hey, Neil, until I think of my what I had to say, we'll bring Neil back on. Love when that happens.
Oh man, you're asking another old guy like Flash. I don't know if it's just old age or if I'm just forgetting shit because I forget shit. So I don't know. I get something on the tip of my tongue. I'm all excited, and then it's like, huh?
Just like
am I having a brain fart here, or what's going on? I see we have some comments here. It appears that the lovely and talented Susan Fine is reminding me that a friend of mine, Rich Davis, he's apparently escaped from Bellevue. At any rate, Rick's great. He's a good friend of mine, and he's a good fan of the show, and we love him to death. But so I guess, Flash, you've been great fun, and we love having you on. So we're going to say goodbye. And we'll see you soon. Again, please send me that link of you jamming with us. If you have any other video from that show, like we played at your club, I remember a couple times, or jammed there a couple times. My memory, we did so many gigs in that period. And like you were always a great friend of the Shakes, and still are, I'm sure. My boys are still out there.
Before they were the Shakes, they were Dialogue. And
right.
Dialogue played at the second party. The warehouse parties that started the club, began in 1984. And if you recall, Mike Upledger's brother was Mark Upledger, rest in peace, Mark. But their group was called Empty Sky, and Stuck and Steady from the Shakes played with Empty Sky. And they played the very first party that I had. And then the second party that I had was the Shakes playing, and but also Mighty Pat and the Culture Roots and Imani and Eddie Kirkland and all. We had such a diverse thing going in the warehouse parties, which we kept going with Club More in those 4 years.
Oh yeah, and that was great fun. I always loved your club. It was just like you could tell it's a club built by musicians.
Well, the cool thing about it, when you're saying that before you go, and I know you got to go.
That's all right.
Dan Hicks brought his acoustic show to the club, okay?
Mm-hmm.
And Dan Hicks walked in and he looked at the place and he goes, what the hell is this? Okay. And Dan, was in his late 60s at the time. So this is a man who's been playing music for 50 years. And I introduced myself, told him I'm a big fan of his music, his songs. I love his sense of humor, blah, blah, blah. And he's like, go away, kid, you bother me. Anyway, at the end of the night, he came up and he said, this is one of the best sounding rooms I've ever played in. And that's because of all the wood, right?
Absolutely.
I mean, we had a wood floor
and wood stage. Yeah.
Gosh, so that was wonderful. I miss Club more, But
I'm sure everybody does. That was a very fun scene. And I remember vaguely, and I say this because at the time we were in full Shakes mode. We loved to have fun in those days, but
yeah, man.
I had a lot of fun there, and I know everybody in the Bay Area. In fact, when we do the book, we'll do a whole chapter on Club More. And, when I do your story, we'll have a good bit about the club and again, everybody who's watching, I am looking for pictures from the 70s, 80s, 90s. I'm really looking for pictures of the Tampa music scene from the 60s up until now. So there's a lot of people in the scene, and I'm hoping to get them all in the book because I don't want to miss anybody. And there's been a couple of books out there that are pretty good about different periods. I'm going to combine it. I've talked to some of the other authors involved who've written, and, I'm not here to compete. I'm just here to add to what's been written. I like talking to musicians, and I want my book to be the best damn book about the Tampa music scene with the most detail, I can write a book about via press release, what people put out on their page in Music Magazine or, Creative Loafing. But when you get to talk to somebody, that's the real thing. So listen, we're going to say goodbye for now. And everybody, Flash Gordon, where do we find you again, Flash? On
the best way would probably be flashesworkbench.com at FLASHSWORKBENCH, flashesworkbench.com.
All right, man. Well, listen, I'll be talking to you real soon. And when I run the video on here, I'm going to do an interview of the Shakes. And I think what I'm going to do is I'm going to have Julie do the interview, and I won't be doing my host duties. I'll just be Neil Drummer Guy. And I want to wish everybody out there a happy Krampus. One of the good friends of the show sent this to me. And I love Krampus. For those of you who are unaware, Krampus is sort of the anti-Santa Claus from the Nordic countries. The basic way they call the Krampi, they dress like Yetis with horns. They're incredibly fierce-looking creatures, sort of look like this guy. And what they do is they go out and they terrorize the kids, and they have this big festival in town. Anyway, I'm going to let it be. We'll talk about Krampus another time. Send me those, and I'll be talking to you again soon.
All right, I'm honored to.
Follow, subscribe, like us anywhere you find webcasts and on all of our social media to get bonus material.